If you're not moving forward in life, you're moving backwards. This is Ace and Jamie, and this is Breakpoint Podcast.
Our goal is to create and deliver content that evokes a change of spirit and heart, seeking out messages that will relate and inspire.
Stories and experiences of people and their breakpoint in life.
Little rough around the edges, completely unhinged, and wildly compassionate.
We bring you Breakpoint Podcast.
Thank you for being with us today on Breakpoint Podcast. We have some pretty urgent information that we wanted to get out to the public. We have a special guest here today. He is a police officer in New York, and I'm actually going to let our good friend Brandon introduce him because right now these topics are weighing heavy on everyone's heart, and we really feel that hearing people, being supportive, and listening to new perspective is important. And so Brandon came to us, and we've been having a lot of conversations, and he's one of our oldest, closest friends, and he asked, could we talk about some of this stuff? I think people need to hear this. And so I'm just going to hand it off to him. Brandon, we're super excited to have you on the podcast today. So why don't you go ahead and tell us, what is your goal? What are your plans for this podcast and what you want people to hear?
No, I appreciate you guys setting this up. I don't know what the goal is for the same reason that, I don't know what the solution is going to be. All I know is that, we're going through a time right now that we've never seen before. And, we need people to take action. We need people to, protest. We need people to donate to different charities. And we need people to have those really tough conversations that aren't normally had between two different sides. And, in a respectful way, of course, but we could also have fun. And, we just need people to, kind of hear these point of views. Obviously, I'm an African-American, been that way my whole life, 31 years old. I'm not saying that I'm an activist. I'm not saying that I'm a super political person. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm just a regular dude. I'm a regular dude that has, like I said, lived on this planet for 31 years. And, there are things that I am looking to get a better understanding for. There are things that, as an African-American, I've been taught by my parents, by my grandparents, some through school. Obviously school doesn't teach you all of the stuff about African-American history. But, one of the conflicts that African-Americans have had is what we're seeing now between, systemic racism, police brutality, and, just everything revolving around that we've been experiencing for the last 400 years. So, I want to do my part to actually have a conversation, with Kevin, who is a New York City cop, and, see if we could, get down the bottom of something. Maybe this could impact, someone's child whose parents grew up, super racist, and, they hear us coming together and they're like, wow, you can, use two sides of the same coin. Cool?
Awesome. Yeah, we're in. We're totally in.
That's really proud. I know the biggest thing, at least and I can only speak for me personally, is the perspective that a lot of people don't hear right now. It isn't out there. Is the perspective of cops right now, and what is their perspective? And there's a million different perspectives depending on who you're speaking to, right?
That's why I'm here, man. I want to hear it.
Good why we have you. The reason why we have Kevin on the show will be awesome, and we really just wanted to see his perspective on kind of where he's at, where he stands, and what he believes in.
Definitely. Well, I appreciate you guys having me first and foremost. I think we've gotten two perspectives. We've gotten the perspective of the police officer that, goes on social media, and obviously, what we saw on television was horrific with George Floyd. That was crazy. I don't think there's a cop in this world that agrees with what happened. But I think cops are fearful and they're staying silent. Instead of coming out and giving their perspective and saying, hey, this is what I deal with on a daily basis, they just stay silent. And I think that's the problem. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm nervous. I'm nervous because I don't know how people are gonna react to this. But I figure I'm gonna be honest. And I honestly feel that's all anybody could ask for. I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna tell you my story, and that's it. You know what I mean?
Awesome. So, get into that. Also, I appreciate you reaching out because we went to high school together. We lived in the same town in Long Island together. I don't know. I didn't feel like saying it. Whatever. But but yeah, I know you. You you're part of the urban community.
Yeah,
so you
definitely.
also have ties to both a police officer and the minority community at the same time, which I think is very important because your goggles aren't fogged, if that makes sense.
100%. I mean, look, full disclosure, I'm not an NYPD officer. I am a cop in New York State. But look, I mean, I grew up in Queens for most of my life. I moved to West Hempstead, where I went to high school with you, about halfway through high school. You know, the biggest thing that I saw moving from Queens to Long Island was the education system and how different it was. I had Spanish class in Queens on the floor outside in the trailer, and I never went to class. I played crazy eights in the lunchroom. You know, I had a 35 average. And when I moved to Long Island, it was like night and day. It was crazy. We had lockers. I didn't even know what I was like. I thought that was on TV. Honestly, I legitimately thought like that was something that you only saw on TV.
In the movies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Shout out to West Hempstead for the lockers.
Yeah, you could tell. Like, I mean, the teachers were more, you know, in tune. They spoke to you. It wasn't like that in the city. You know what I mean? And I think we need to look at the whole entire picture. You know what I mean? Moving to Long Island was a blessing for me. You know, my mother was able to, you know, make that happen. And I think my life would be totally different if that didn't happen. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a brother, I'm a son, and I'm a police officer, but that's not who I am. That's what I do. You know, I'm a father first, a husband first and foremost, every time. My children are half black. My wife is West Indian. I'm Puerto Rican and Colombian. My children are minorities. This fight is just as much mine as anybody else's. You know, and I feel like, you know, I think we need to, one of the things I wanted to bring up is, I hate bringing up statistics because I feel like they're insensitive. I feel like when you start bringing up stats, people are like, you know, you're talking about people.
Yeah.
But I do want to bring up one stat. And that's 90% of NYPD. We're going to talk about NYPD mainly because they're the big department.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
But 90% of NYPD officers don't have a single substantiated CCRB complaint. Right? So when we're talking about
What's CC?
write that
What's CC? You know, I know what that is, but I want to make sure Ace and Jamie know.
I don't know what
So a
that is.
CCRB complaint, it's a board. It's a Civilian Complaint Review Board. So
Okay.
pretty much you have an interaction with police. You feel like they did something wrong. Let's just say, you know, police brutality.
Yeah.
For instance, you feel like, you know, they did something wrong. You're going to either file a complaint online, by phone, however you're going to do it. It's going to get forwarded to a Civilian Complaint Review Board. So they're civilians. They're not cops.
Yeah.
You're not giving it to a boss. You know, I feel like a lot of people have the misconception that you're going to give it to a boss. That boss is going to rip it, throw it in the garbage, and it's all over. That's
Yeah.
not the way it works.
Yeah, I personally thought like that's how things went. Like that's why, you know, most people don't put in like a complaint or anything against a police officer because you feel like, you know, it's just not going to get heard because that's not what they do.
Right. I mean, you could file it online. You could file it on the phone. You literally just Google it, you know, NYPD complaint. And that's how, you know, so I feel like, you know, that's something that people, you know.
So wait, you're saying that not one NYPD officer has...
No, 90%. So 90% of NYPD officers don't have a single substantiated CCRB complaint. Substantiated meaning anyone can complain on you.
Okay.
Right? I can give you a ticket. You could say, hey, this guy gave me a ticket. He's an asshole. You know, I want to file a complaint. The CCRB board, what their job is to investigate those complaints. So they investigate the complaint and they pretty much come to the decision, is it substantiated or not? If it's substantiated, then, you know, they go on to disciplinary action and so on and so forth. I don't know any of the particulars beyond that because, I mean, the union gets involved and things like that, and I'm not NYPD. But I do know that it is, the CCRB is the board that gets all complaints for police officers, or most of them. I'm sure Internal Affairs gets involved with some of the major ones, but so 90% of NYPD police officers don't have a single CCRB complaint. Now, you can go in even deeper and say, like, 2% have more than 3, 5%, you know, but I won't. I'll just say, let's focus on the 10%. Let's focus on that 10% and how we can quote unquote bad cops. How do we fix that? And I think you have to put yourself in the police officer's shoes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in reality, you cannot expect us to see the worst society has to offer. And you want us to be warriors on one side, crime fighters. And then on the other hand, say, you're not sensitive enough. You cursed at me. We're human, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we're mothers, we're fathers, we're sisters, we're brothers. That's who we are.
Yeah.
Policing is what we do. And I think a lot of times people think we're a cop all the time. You know what I mean? I mean, I can only speak for me personally. I don't want to give the perspective of every police officer because everybody's different. But I've been a police officer for 4 years. I can tell you that it does something to you, right? Seeing, the body of a woman who jumped 3 stories off a building and you're the first unit to respond does something to you. But you're told to suck it up, right? Go back, do your paperwork, keep it moving. You see, you're giving CPR to a 40-year-old father whose parents, whose son and daughter and wife is looking on, and the likelihood of him not making it is high.
That's
right?
crazy.
And then you have to go back and go take your meal and and push forward. Now it does something to the police officer's subconscious, and I say subconscious because I genuinely feel like, it doesn't do anything to me. I'm kind of used to it. But there's no way that it doesn't do something to you in the back of your head, right? It has to do something, and I believe it makes you a little cold. It makes you a little cold to the insensitive things in life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Of the cursing or being rude or things of that nature.
Numb. It would be like my brother's a corrections officer,
Right.
So he talks about how you have to become numb.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's how you survive.
What he's in. So
That's how
I
you
could
survive,
imagine. So to your point, you're saying through seeing all that, the numbness that's going on.
It affects you, but we got to talk about solutions, right? So
Yeah, because I know a lot of people would say, are you trying to make an excuse?
no, not at all, not at all, not even close. What I'm saying is, how do we come up with a solution? My personal opinion, like I said, I'm not speaking for all police officers. I think we need mandatory counseling. We hear about PTSD in almost all professions, not just the military, but you never hear about it in the law enforcement profession, right? And let's say you do fight through the stigma of being called a pussy, and you go and you tell your boss, I'm fucked up from that job, man. They're gonna treat you like you're suicidal, and they're gonna take your gun and your badge because they don't want you to kill yourself because the suicide rates for police officers are super high, and they don't want to be held liable. That's just the truth, right?
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, I'm 1,000% for therapy. I think everybody should go through therapy. I think kids should go through therapy. So I'm with you on that. I mean, that's definitely, one part of the solution puzzle that we're trying to put
100%.
together. My question for you is, so you said that, you're a police officer, it's your job, but then when you get off, you're a father, your daddy.
Man, that's it.
I think, and I want your perspective. So, when people and the media, I feel like they kind of portray police officers and cops and state troopers, whatever, as like RoboCops.
Yeah.
Like you guys are drones that enforce the law. You're like that 24/7. I know I've had a lot of conversations, or I see people with the blue lives matter, and I support good cops. I understand, but does that mentality hurt you as a police officer? Does it do more damage? Because
it separates into sides.
Yeah.
And put us as a society in a whole. It says well, who do you support and who do you support?
Exactly.
I don't think that makes sense. I think right now you have politicians who are holding law enforcement as a whole.
Yeah.
And they're holding our head on a stake and they're saying, look what we did. Look what we did for you guys. Don't look at us. Don't look at, what we've done. Police is the problem. We need to fix police. But if you really look at the issues facing our community, it's redlining, education reform, housing.
What's
redlining?
Yeah.
Well, so redlining pretty much is segregating the impoverished community outside of the wealthy areas, right? So I mean, a perfect example for people who live on Long Island is Garden City and Hempstead.
Versus Hempstead. Yeah.
Gotcha.
You know, you literally, you can see the line.
Night and day.
You can see the line. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You can see the line.
It's a block. It's
the
literally
asphalt.
Yeah, the asphalt, you could see the
all cracked
difference.
on one
Yeah.
side, and then on the other side, it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Homes.
Yeah.
Where's
know
the
what
other
I mean?
place I'm thinking about? Like Dix Hills, and what's next to Dix Hills?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Suffolk, but yeah, man.
same thing. Same thing.
And those are the issues I feel like we have to battle. I am not saying that police brutality is not a thing. Policing needs to be changed. That is a fact. But I want to, what are the solutions?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no innovation in policing whatsoever. We're in 2020. If the public and if the people on top, the politicians don't want us using batons, and you want to take away batons, my personal opinion, we shouldn't have a pipe that just expands. We're in 2020. Why haven't we innovated and come up with other non-lethal methods for police? How is that even a thing? And I don't have ideas for that.
Yeah.
But I don't have ideas for a lot of things. You know what I mean? Those are the engineers.
Now, would you agree? Because the baton, and because you brought that up, because just like it's kind of like a gun, right? It's not so much the gun killing the person than the person pulling the trigger.
Right,
So
exactly.
Getting rid of batons really the answer.
No, and
Yeah.
I don't necessarily. But what I'm saying is, if on media, in the media, you're seeing like, oh my God, the batons, the batons, the batons, and my thing is, okay, so what's your solution? They give us non-lethal options. I didn't ask for a baton. I didn't say, hey, I'm a police officer. Can I get that? This is what's issued to you as a police officer. This is what you're given. They're giving you OC spray and a baton.
What's OC spray?
OC spray is pretty much pepper spray.
All right.
It's a stronger pepper spray.
Cool.
I'd say. But, when I became a police officer, it's not like, this is what the department, this is the status quo. Here's your baton. Here's your OC spray. Some get tasers, some do not. And that's it. Those are your options, right? Those are your non-lethal force options.
Yeah. There was just a girl who was a protester, and she died because she got sprayed with the OC spray, and she had an asthma attack and died. And like they're opening up an investigation for it, so it's like, man, if you can't use your spray, if you can't use the baton, it's like, what can you use other than your fist in your hands?
And that's a great point. And I think you need to look at if you want solutions, you have to look at the police officers. You have to look at the boots on the ground and say, listen, good cops, 90%. What can we do to fix these issues, right? What do you think we should do? I personally think there should be a larger block of instruction in all academies and throughout your career of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Why aren't we, you can't take, and I'm not saying these are all cops, but let's just say, for example, you take a kid from suburban Long Island and he gets into the NYPD. He's never been in a fight in his life. I'm not saying that's most cops. I'm just saying, for example, you take him and he goes through the academy and he gets a block of instruction. These are compliance holds, and they're good blocks of instruction. They're just not long enough. You need to have advanced instruction, right? In compliance holds. If you want us to use other methods, then we need that. Then that's what we need. The solution isn't defunding the police. As a matter of fact, it should be give us more so we can have those options, right? Why aren't we doing 20 years straight of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
What you said is brilliant, because you think about, a white kid from Long Island becoming a cop. Right now, most cops, they're going to the NYPD, right? When they're new, where do they go?
Yeah, they go to the Bronx, Brooklyn,
Some of the worst,
7-5.
Some of the most dangerous
And then
areas.
it's a shock.
They don't know how to fight. They get into a situation, they're scared. They're scared, and what do you do when you're scared?
Yeah, I was talking to this with a family member the other day where, he said to me, if you're going to be a police officer, you can't be scared. And to me, that's just not, how can you say that? We're all scared. I've been scared for my life, both outside and inside the job, because you don't know what's going to happen. I have perspective. I look back, when I was 24, I got diagnosed with cancer. It was thyroid cancer, and it was treatable. It was stage 1. No big deal. But at the time, I was so young, I didn't even know what a thyroid was.
Yeah.
I was like, am I going to die? Do I have throat cancer? You know what I mean? And, you know, I fought through that feeling, but I was scared because I didn't know if I was going to die. You can't say to a police officer, you can never be scared, because that's not human.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But
Well,
police officers don't want to say that because they feel like they're going to somehow be held liable if you say, like, I'm a human and I get scared too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, you know, I agree. You know, I always have the perspective is, how come they don't give incentives, or do they give incentives for people to become police officers in their own community? So, you know, communities like the Bronx or Brooklyn or Queens, where it's predominantly African Americans, and, you know, why don't we start a program that gives an incentive, you know, for people who want to become police officers but be in their own community? So when there's a scenario like a George Floyd or you know, something that's like, no, I know this guy, you know, get off of his neck, or I know this guy, you know, I'll handle it, or, you know, I'll talk to him, as opposed to.
But my question to you would be this: okay, so there's 36,000 police officers in New York City, right?
Yep.
50% of them are minorities.
Okay.
In terms of the community, what do you mean by the community? Do you mean, okay, so if it's Queens, let's just say Queens precincts. You're
Yep.
saying, why aren't they just hiring within Queens?
Well, like what we just talked about.
Yeah.
The white kid from Bronx, from
Long Island,
who's
going-
a brand new cop, and now he's in the Bronx.
But
Yeah,
How's
like-
it connected or tied
how's
to that
the
community?
legality? Like,
Yeah.
legally, how can you do that?
Yeah,
How can
it's
you
tough.
say,
I'm not. Yeah. Well.
you're white from Suffolk County, we're not going to allow you to join NYPD because we're going to put you in the Bronx?
It's ridiculous,
It's
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a bigger issue. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the NYPD police test is pretty straightforward. You go, you take a test, you get put on a list based on your grade. They call you in order, and that's just the way it is. I don't know realistically
Yeah.
if that would even be a possibility. Like, I know Minneapolis is saying, you know, they're bringing up different things and, you know, defund the police. And, you know, I understand they're under a lot of political pressure. They're under a lot of human pressure. But I think the way they're going about it is just not the right way, because I feel like they're tricking
Yeah.
the public. They're not being honest. They're saying, we're going to dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department. We're going to start from scratch. Well, how would you do that? Like, what judge is going to allow you to fire every single cop? Are you talking about firing cops? Firing every single cop of the Minneapolis Police Department? And then, okay, so where do you go from there? Oh, we're going to do, you know, for emotionally disturbed persons, you know, we'll have counselors respond. Okay, but, you know, let's say that emotionally disturbed person gets violent. Then what? You know what I mean? So now you have someone who's not trained to deal with or anything combative, responding to this job, risking their life.
Yeah.
You know, how does that work? We need to have the conversation,
Yeah.
and you know, we need to have the frank, honest conversation. And sometimes people aren't going to be happy with that conversation. I think that's been the biggest problem. You'll see police officers on social media saying, "Look, what they did to George Floyd was fucked up. Fuck those cops.
Yeah.
Put them under the jail," right?
Mm-hmm.
But then that's it. And then you'll see this. Then there's silent cops. But like, there has to be. We have to somehow get somewhere in the middle where it's like, yes, what he did was fucked up. How do we fix that?
Let's talk about these silent cops.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
You know what? So
I was one yesterday though, right?
Okay.
I was one yesterday.
yeah,
Seriously,
that's
though,
very
right?
true. That's very true.
I was the silent cop yesterday.
Yep.
You know, I called you. The only reason I'm here today is because I called you to get your perspective.
Yep.
And I wanted to give you mine.
Yep.
As friends.
Yep.
And you know, you said to me, "Listen, man, I think other people need to hear this."
1,000%.
And we're here today.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of cops who just don't have that outlet to talk to someone and say, "Hey," or just don't want the drama, don't need the drama. They're already going through so much. It's like, I'm just gonna take a step back and I'm gonna mind my business. And I think that's the wrong way to go about it, and that's why I'm here today.
Like, seeing what we see now with happened with George Floyd, like, there are cops that are posting up on social media. To be honest, I've never seen that before. I've never seen cops do FaceTime with, like, their badge number in their cop car saying,
Wow.
you know, what that officer did to George Floyd is messed up. And if I'm being honest, like, I definitely, watching that video, I see some sort of white supremacy racism going on. For that cop to think that he can, you know, literally have his knee on somebody's neck for that long while being recorded, while there's probably traffic cams that are recording, there's
People are
probably
begging
stores.
him to
I think
stop.
Yeah.
it was ego. I
It
honestly
was pride.
believe it was pride. It was ego. It was people looking at him and telling him, "Get your leg off," and he's like, "I don't gotta do shit."
Yeah,
No, I think that's what a lot of it. What it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that like something has to be in place to fix that, and I think that's like the world seeing a perfect example of what the African American community has been witnessing for forever. Is like that, that instance where a police officer or even someone who's white doing something to an African American and thinking because they're white and that person is black that they can get away with it. Like we saw the same thing with Ahmaud. First of all, we saw the video of it like months afterwards. The fact that they thought that they can literally get in their car, hunt someone down, and literally lynch them, execute them right there, just for looking in a home that has nothing in it.
Yeah.
Nothing in it. And that home security camera showed a bunch of other people going up to the home to look at it. It must have been a nice house. I don't know. But for them to think that they can do that and then get away with it, I mean, I think the guy was a retired detective or cop or something like that.
It was something. I think his father was a sheriff or something.
Yeah.
along those lines. I'm not really sure, man.
Those are the things that we're afraid is still implemented in the justice system as a whole. Police officers, crooked DAs, crooked judges, these sentences that are given to African Americans that, for minor crimes, for like marijuana crimes, elongated bail sentences, and also putting so much money in bail for small things like Khalif Browder, him being accused of stealing a book bag, but then making his bail $10,000. I don't understand.
I understand everything you're saying, and I think you see how everything just got jumbled up into one.
Yeah.
You see how it went from police to systemic racism, from a non-police officer to the judicial system to to crime bills, but somehow in the middle it's all the cops.
Yeah.
And I think everyone needs to see the bigger picture. Who makes those changes? Who's the one prosecuting? Who's the one actually adding charges or taking away charges? The district attorneys. You know what I mean? Like, who are the ones making these crime bills?
Yep.
We're just cops. You know what I'm saying? And we are responsible for our actions, no doubt. And if you are a piece of shit cop, I condemn you, 100%.
That's what I want to hear.
But where are the solutions to the bigger problems? Like I said before, politicians want all eyes on police officers. Media wants all eyes on police officers because it brings ratings. Everybody wants all eyes on police officers to make everyone feel like they are the problem. No, they are just part of the problem. Mm-hmm. There is a bigger, much larger problem in our country. How do we get to the root of that problem? It's not by defunding police, right? That's not going to help systemic racism. Mm-hmm. That's going to make cops more agitated. If you're taking away income and things, how does that help? Is my question. Like, how would that help? How would defunding the police department
essentially
help?
Making a cop want to be a cop less?
Right.
Yeah, I want to look up and see like what are the guidelines that people want in the defunding of the police, because I mean, it sounds crazy to me. Like, to be honest, and please nobody kill me for this, but I feel like cops should be paid a lot more, but I think their standards should also be elevated. 100%. Just like any other profession. Like, the higher the salary is, the better quality is going to be, the more difficult that interview process is going to be.
I don't think it's the hiring. Like I said to you, but we had this conversation. I don't think it's the hiring process. I think the hiring process is fine. I think no one knows what kind of cop you're going to be until you're a cop.
Yeah.
It's the deaths. It's all the things that you see on a daily basis.
So continued education, in a sense.
Yeah.
Therapy,
counseling.
Yep.
Expert level
training, more training,
advanced level tactics. Yeah. We should be doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu on an advanced level, not at like a 2-week block or whatever it is. It needs to be like steady. It needs to be like, you guys need to come in once every other month for a day, and we need to go over it. You know what I mean? But that costs money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you don't like us using the non-lethal options that we have right now, then provide us better options.
Okay.
Provide us things like jiu-jitsu. I think jiu-jitsu would be great. I think compliance holds are awesome. But we need to be taught that, right? I mean, most of us aren't UFC fighters.
The average person doesn't know anything.
The average
about
person
jiu-jitsu.
doesn't know that. And if you are outmatched, I try to use the example. I try to switch sides a little bit. If you are outmatched, a person who is actively being combative with you, or you are just outmatched, he's just bigger than you, which is a possibility. Which people think it's like you're a cop. Like, what do you mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you were just outmatched and he's just stronger than you.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yo, to be honest, I'm gonna probably play dead, and hopefully that person's just like.
I know. I see what you're saying. 'Cause that's the only skill if it comes to the ground where you got a shot of
a shot of actually
dismantling him, holding
without
him,
going to anything else.
Yep,
without going to anything else, right? That's your only option. If you were outmatched, jiu-jitsu is the only thing that could actually save you if you have advanced level training.
Yeah, I have a couple of friends who are like jiu-jitsu and MMA, like black belts and all that, and even they'll post up videos and like, all right, you see this chokehold that this police officer's doing, like this is illegal in judo tournaments.
All those are illegal. Chokeholds,
Yeah.
knee on the neck, those are illegal. And I'm not gonna say all departments because I'm not familiar with every department.
Yeah.
But I would say the departments that I know of, all illegal. You're not allowed to do it, 100%. And I want people to understand that. I am not vouching for the 10%.
Okay.
I am vouching for the 90%.
And when you say that, just to reiterate, you're talking about the 90%
who've never had a complaint.
Never had a substantiated complaint.
Yes.
From a civilian.
Yes.
God. So, you're tired. This person may be bigger than you, or this, you've been working a crazy shift and maybe this person's hanging out. But then, again, from my perspective is, the police officer is the police officer. The police officer has the authority. They have a gun. They can call for backup. There's so many different things. So just as a police officer is going through instinct and, fear, I may be doing that as well. Now, is it the police officers, and I'm just talking as a whole, is it their job to also understand that and to try to de-escalate a situation?
De-escalation is the first thing you should do, always. De-escalation is, it's always it's always my go-to. Yeah. If I can go there, and even if you're amped up, even if I respond to a job and you're screaming and yelling at me, if I could somehow look at you in the eye and be like, listen, bro, let's just have a conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's talk about it. Well, what's the deal? That's always my go-to because I think that's best for both people. But we also have to understand that that's not always the case, right? There are cases where you cannot de-escalate. It cannot be you always need to de-escalate because there's cases where you cannot de-escalate. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? And we have to put that into perspective. We have to understand that policing is violent, it smells, it hurts, it's sad, it's sometimes very rewarding. Yeah. But it's all those things. Yeah. You can't just say, it's you need to use, we have discretion, right? I mean, you can try to de-escalate situations, but not every situation is a situation that you can de-escalate.
What is protocol? Like if you were to suggest like the best scenario or best thing for someone to do when a police officer says, they're going to arrest you,
Well, I'm not going to give, I won't give advice to people. What I will say is this is what I'm going to teach my children.
Okay, perfect example.
What I'm going to teach my children is, and I'm not saying that anyone should teach their children. This is what I, as a father, this is my right. This is what I'm going to teach my children.
Yeah.
I'm going to teach them to be respectful to everyone, including police officers. And I'm going to let them know that, listen, police have a difficult job. They don't know you like I know you. They don't know that you're a good person and you have a good heart. So your first impression to them is everything. If you show them that you are respectful from the beginning, there is a higher chance of them being respectful back. I won't say always, because You know, there's people who are assholes,
Yeah.
right? Both cops and not cops. But I will say, be respectful if you want to be respected in return.
Yeah.
And that's it. And cooperate with the police officer. If he asks you for your license, give him your license. You know, if he asks you to roll your window down, roll your window down.
I know a good practical would be if, hey, Dad, you know, I got pulled over. This is what happened, and it went totally wrong. What do you recommend I do the next time? You're talking to your son or daughter.
Exactly.
You know,
And
what are you explaining? Like, you get pulled over. What would you explain?
I'm going to tell him, listen, he doesn't know who you are, so he's going to pull you over. He's probably going to give you a traffic infraction and just say, hey, sir, I'm sorry. You know, did I do something to get pulled over? Yeah, you know, you turn right on red. Okay, well, I'm sorry. I apologize. You know, okay, can I get your license, registration, proof of insurance? Sure. Here you go. He goes back to the car. You know, come back. You know, that's all you could really ask for. I'm not going to tell him, put your hands on the wheel, do all this crazy shit, because I don't think that's necessary, to be honest.
Okay.
I feel like, you know, I've had that situation where and I feel bad. I'm just like, yo, relax, dude. Like, you know, it's no big deal. Like, you don't need to do all that shit. You know.
But that's you.
Yeah.
That's me.
That's someone
that's
interacting with you, and you feel that way.
Right. That's my perspective of how I am as a
So
police
since we're talking about your children, and they are half black, right?
half West, they're West Indian.
Okay.
They're Trinidadian, Colombian, and Puerto Rican.
So they get stopped. You have 2 girls, you have 2 boys.
I have 2 boys.
2 boys. So you're saying that you think that teaching them to be respectful is the only thing that you need to do to prepare them for police interaction?
No, I mean, there's a much larger conversation, right, about racism in America and all that. But my advice to them, and it could be wrong advice, it could be right. This is just going to be my advice to them.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, be respectful, and whatever they tell you to do, just do it. Don't argue. You know, if it's something that they pulled you over for, that's
Now,
fucked
what if
up.
they're intoxicated? You know, what if they've been drinking, and you've done your best to teach them this stuff, and now they have an interaction with police?
Yeah, I mean, those are. I'm gonna be frustrated because that's a situation that, you know, obviously I'm gonna try to teach my kids don't go out drinking and drive.
Yeah. I was gonna say that should probably be the conversation before.
Right. You know, I don't want to. You know, I feel like when we get into these like crazy sidebars, almost, where it's like, I don't really know. I don't have
what if scenarios.
Yeah, like, you know, I don't have the answers for that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But like I said, I think what people need more of is just honesty, man. That's it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, being honest, and you know, I'm just giving you a glimpse of my life and hoping others can see it and say, okay.
And because you're on this, and this may be a little bit of like a, you know, I don't know how you want to answer this, if you want to answer, but a lot of, because there's 2 sides to every story, a lot of stuff that we see sometimes that are recorded, some people may see some of this, and not just black, a lot of times minorities, but people may say, well, that probably could have been controlled if the person reacted a different way, right? You know what I'm saying? Like what's your opinion on that?
Well, we spoke about this before. I mean, I think 22, hindsight's always 2020. And I think you could look at any situation on camera and look at it and say, if A, B, and C didn't happen, you know. But I don't like to look at situations like that, only because, like, you can't change it, you know? Like, there has to be some way where we can come up with a solution. We can learn from it, most definitely, but I just don't think it helps. I don't think it helps the conversation moving forward ever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And look, I'm not saying, you know, when it comes to my kids, look, I grew up in Queens. I've dealt with police brutality.
Yeah.
You know, I've been there. I've been on both sides. You know, so people can't tell me like, oh, but you don't know how it. I know what it's like. You know, don't tell me I don't know what it's like. I know what it's like. You know, I don't have to be specific, but I know what it's like. I understand. I'm in the middle. I understand both sides.
Yeah, tell it to all the people that have opinions on Facebook.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, I know what my life was like. I know what it took for me to get to the point I am right now. To the man I am today, I know what type of shit I've been through. So, I think a lot of people have to take a step back and not, you know, a lot of it is, you don't know what I've been through, so you can't say that. And it's like, what are you talking? I'm not trying to say anything about what you've been through. I don't know what you've been through. I don't know you. I don't know you. I'm just giving you my perspective as a human. That is it. That's all I want. I don't want to convince anybody of anything. I'm not trying to lean someone in one direction or the other. I'm simply trying to state, this is my bird's eye view.
Yeah.
This is how I see things.
Yeah.
Whether it be right or wrong,
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's me in my totality, and it's me being truthful. And that's all I feel like anybody can ask for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we can't really tell, what's right or wrong. We can only judge a situation or someone by them actually being in that situation.
100%.
I think that's the biggest thing, because there's a lot of people that have opinions on different things, and it's like, well, you're not a police officer, and you're also not black. Not saying that you're not allowed to have an opinion. Obviously, we have free speech, and that's perfect. But when somebody like us sitting right here, you're a police officer, I take your credibility high because you're an officer. You know what you're talking about. It's the same thing with
Well,
an
you
African.
can also vouch for his character.
Yes, that too. That's
the biggest thing, because I think anyone listening is going to say, well, I mean, you could have two sides. I mean, there's a million sides to this. So it is really hard to express an opinion.
Yeah.
But there could be people that say, well, what the heck does he know?
Yeah.
Right.
And people will argue it. And, so I think the biggest thing is understanding that the reason we're having this conversation is because you're vouching for his character.
Yep, absolutely. And it's the same thing for me. I mean, like I said before, I'm not like the voice of the people. I'm not like Brandon, the activist.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just me, and I know I'm an African American. I know what my parents are a direct result of government-sponsored segregation. Like, my mom is from Marcy Projects. I got family in Tompkins and Brooklyn. I probably got like 30 or 40 family members that are in different project communities in NYC. And my mom is one of the people that were actually able to make it out. So actually able to make it out of, systematic oppression, which, I want to shout off the top of the rooftops for her. I'm thankful for that.
Yeah.
So I know there's different things that I can see through my lens on when something is, a type of oppression, or something when it is racist. And there's a lot of people, obviously, there are white people, but there are some black people too who don't see these specific scenarios. And if you don't see these scenarios, then we can't have these conversations.
No, 100%. I think we need more conversations like this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? If we had more conversations like this one, whether they're hurtful or whatever, but they're respectful.
Yeah.
Right? We're sitting here, we're not screaming at each other. There's not a ton of emotion involved. We're just having a conversation. You're giving me your point of view, you're giving me your point of view, I'm giving you mine, and that's it. We move forward. You know what I mean? I think if more people had this type of conversation, I think things would only get better.
Yeah, no.
But I think it's a blame game, man. It's a blame game. And like I said, I'm not saying police brutality is not an issue. I'm not saying police doesn't need reform. I'm saying that does need to happen. But where are the solutions? And what are the other issues along with that? It cannot just be police brutality. It has to. It's a larger issue, right? Systemic racism is a larger issue, and getting specific. I mean, how do you get into someone's subconscious? There has to be policies, right? And you have to hold policymakers accountable.
Yeah, that's a good one. And, I want the African American community, myself included, to hear that one, because we can't just blame, the bad cops or police officer in general. We got to get out there and vote out these 100%. Politicians, these, I don't even know if you could vote judges in or whatever, but we need to vote these people, and we need to go through their bills and everything that they sign with a fine-tooth comb and see which people are hurting us more and what people are going to benefit us more. I mean, vote with the black agenda in mind.
I don't, and look, and I'm to blame too. I don't vote. But I will. I am going to start voting.
Yeah.
I am going to start.
Edit that part
I
out.
vote for. I vote for president.
Yeah.
I vote for president. But in terms of like local elections,
Yeah.
I never voted. You know what I mean? I just moved to the town I live in now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've never. I don't vote. You know what I mean? I'm 30 years old. I vote I voted for president every 4 years, but I've never voted in a local election.
I didn't,
because I think people look at it and they're like, so what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Most people.
Yeah.
Most people. At least most people that I know.
I didn't understand the value of it until you actually explained it to me. You were like, yo, we're just enforcing the law that these higher ups made.
Yeah.
And that was like mind blowing to me. I was like, oh shit. I was like, that's totally right.
Well, people yell at me for that. They'll be like, well, if you see someone with weed or whatever, and now the weed laws are very different. But let's just say 5 years ago. Let's just say 5 years ago. Sorry. Let's just say 5 years ago. We had the same conversation. You say, well, Kev, why did you collar him? Why'd you lock him up for weed? Like, weed is weed. Yeah, but it's a Schedule I narcotic. And it went from being a felony to now being an essential business during the pandemic.
All right, don't let me get started on that one, man.
Right? I mean, isn't that
It's
a
not
larger
illegal.
issue?
It's not illegal now.
It's not illegal now, but we
Technically,
didn't make it the law.
It was illegal then.
Right.
And people
Yeah.
were breaking the law.
And that's
but
a whole
at
other
this,
conversation. Everybody that's locked up right now.
But my
for
question is
30
it
years.
the police officer's job to say, it's just weed, or is it the lawmaker's job to not make it a law?
yeah.
We are law enforcement. We don't
Yeah.
have an option to what laws to enforce and what laws to not enforce. If there's a law, we're there to enforce it. That is the job. Our opinions can't matter.
So do you feel like police right now are really being looked at almost as a scapegoat for something much bigger?
100%. And I don't want to say scapegoat because there's problems. Excuse me. There's problems in policing. That's a fact. There's no, I do believe that, but we're not looking at the bigger issue. Of course, politicians want you to look somewhere else. That's what politicians do.
But when you watch that video,
I'm not even gonna lie, they're good.
They're
good.
awesome.
They're
when you
good.
watch that video of Shalvin, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his last name, but you almost think, because it's so heartbreaking, you think, who allowed him to believe that he had the power that he had to do what he did that day? Almost as if somebody, if not that day, but over time, has given him permission
Yeah, he
over
should have been
and
out.
over again
He should
to
have been
behave
out.
like
He
that.
should have been out a while ago. Everyone saw his prior complaints and his prior incidents.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a bigger issue. That's a police issue, right?
Yeah.
The police
Yeah.
department the police department,
Yeah.
that specific one, needs to answer and be accountable to that.
Yeah, I mean,
Not nationally. That one specifically. Why did you keep him on the street? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
every police department needs to be held accountable for what that police department does. You can, it can't just, it's not a one size fits all scenario. It's not. There's 800,000 police officers. So how do we fix that? It can't just
Yeah.
be, this guy's a dick. They allowed him to be on the street. Now all cops have to suffer. Right? I mean, I don't think, and there's gonna be people that say, yeah, fuck you. I mean, I'm looking through my timeline and I see kill cops, I see this, I see, so I know there's gonna be
Let's
people
take it a
who,
step further. You look at, since that situation, the police brutality that's happened around the globe, all these isolated situations that had nothing to do with Minneapolis, where cops are using police brutality, in Buffalo, New York.
yeah, I mean, that was super unfortunate.
With a guy, the old gentleman with the cane, that came out right after Buffalo.
I think when nerves are high and you're in those high stress environments, that's why I won't comment either way. I'm not gonna, because
The
when
mob
you're in-
mentality effect.
Yeah, I think the mob mentality rolls both ways. If I'm in, it's funny. I had a conversation with my brother not that long ago. My brother's in correction. One of my brothers in correction. Another one's a retired
Nice.
cop, state trooper, right? So and we were talking about it, and he's like, Ace, let's be honest. If me and you were 16, 17, back when, because I grew up in Queens also, in College Park, he's like, we were hanging out with all the dudes over there, right? And we were hanging out with some cats in Corona that we used to hang out with, and everybody was riding. What would me and you be doing?
Yeah.
I was like, I'd probably be grabbing a new pair,
Me too.
of Jordans, right? I'd be there right there with
I mean,
everybody else
that's
because
true.
of the mob mentality.
I
It's
mean-
not my normal nature, but like
Yeah.
the mentality is there. It's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
well, my friends are doing it, let me do it too. So what I'm
Yeah.
saying is when you flip it on the other side now, and cops are in riot gear, perhaps a cop who normally would not be so aggressive is now being extra aggressive.
I think what people also have to realize is this. So, people say like, there's 40,000, 36,000 NYPD officers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but at one point or another, let's just say yesterday, for example, there was 25, the day before yesterday, I'm sorry. There was 25,000 protesters at one point in one location. 25,000. Now, that's 36,000 police officers divided by 2 shifts. They're working 12-hour tours with no days off. So yeah, 36,000, but they can't work 24 hours.
So they're out.
Yeah.
Right. So you divide that in half, right? Now you have to think, well, there's still crimes going on, right?
Yeah.
So besides the protesting, there has to be police officers in the community to respond to jobs.
Yeah.
Right? So think about the amount they're outnumbered. Now think about this. There's a group of, let's just say 2,000, and then there's a group of 100 cops.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's put, you're there. You're that police officer.
Okay.
You're standing there, and 99.9% of those protesters are peaceful. But you have one in the middle who throws a tennis ball with concrete in it, because that's actually things that they're doing now. Let's just say tennis ball, concrete in it, someone throws it from the middle. What do? Now, most of them are peaceful.
Yeah.
Right? But at a certain point, it has to be, you know what? Everyone has to go.
Yeah.
Because you can't just be like, that's not the way order works, right? It needs to be order or it's disorder.
Yeah.
There is no in between.
Okay.
It cannot just be, yes, most of the protesters are being nonviolent.
Yeah.
But the very small amount that are being violent, okay? And I'm not going to argue how much of violent versus nonviolent, because I'm just not.
No, but
Yeah.
that's what you're saying is huge, because I see how the majority then is like, why am I being attacked?
they're
Why am I
saying-
being
right.
forced on
And
us?
it's
Because
like,
of
well-
the minority of people not behaving, breaking stuff, throwing
Right,
rocks,
you
throwing
can't.
bricks.
You can't, it doesn't work that way. So you're supposed
Minority
to
of protesters,
Protesters.
not minority
Minority
race.
protesters.
Yeah,
minority of
gotta save my boy there.
But let's just say, what do you do in that situation? Let's just say as a person.
Yeah.
Right? Do you sit there and just, okay, cool. So one person throws a tennis ball. Now now they see that the one person who threw it got away with it.
Okay.
So now another person throws it. That's how it works. Mob mentality.
Of
right?
course.
So then they're like, oh, well, the cops are letting this shit happen, so let's do it again. Let's do it again. And then all of a sudden, it just gets crazy, right? You cannot allow it to get to that point, because you can't contain it at that point. At that point is with the videos that you're going to see with them bashing windows and go.
Yeah.
There has to be some sort of order. You cannot have it. We are there specifically to protect people's rights to protest.
Yeah.
That is why our original point of being there, right? But we're also there to prevent looting and destruction of our own community.
Yeah.
Right? So you cannot. There has to be some sort of dialogue in between. It cannot just be these cops are doing things to peaceful protesters, but then you're not saying anything about that guy in the middle.
But I mean, so that guy in the middle, 10 guys in the middle out of a couple thousand, I mean, we could say the same thing about the small percentage of police officers
100%.
that don't make
100%.
all the police officers bad.
100%.
But unfortunately, there's that 10% out of the 100 that are bad apples, that are, cancers in the police system that make it worse and make it bad for
100%.
everybody
But you see
else.
how difficult it is, right? You see
Yeah.
how difficult it
It's
is.
like guilty
Yeah.
by association on both.
I mean, it's-
that's what I mean.
yeah.
It's a difficult
Yeah.
situation. It's difficult in both situations, right? It's difficult for the protesters. Yes, you have seen videos of protesters calling out, rioters or looters or whatever you want to call them. And you have seen it on the other side as well. But that's the difficult part of it, right? It's not perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, what is perfect?
But then it also, it doesn't look like I was at a peaceful protest in Nassau County. Shout out to Nassau County police officers and that were in Westbury over the weekend, I think on Saturday, and they were awesome. They let us park in an empty parking lot. One of the lead guys came and talked to us. He was like, if you need us to lead you to the rally, we could do that. Awesome. But then in the cities, it looks like they're dressed as stormtroopers. It looks like they're already about that action. So it almost like if there is a bad bunch in the protesters, they're like, oh man, the police officers are ready for battle. Let's go.
It's much bigger, and the likelihood of it getting violent, going from non-violent to violent, is larger because it's a larger group. Nassau County, it was what, 1,000, 1,500. You're talking about 25 times that. Right. I mean, the sheer numbers, seeing it, is crazy. It stretches so far you can't even imagine now.
So tell us, from a police officer's perspective, right? Because when we look at the protest and we see thousands of people, we're like, wow, people really showed up, and it's a beautiful sight, right? But then from your perspective, when you see a large amount of people like that all together,
worst case scenario. You have to, because you have to be prepared.
So right away, it's like this could be a shitstorm if things go.
I hope this goes right, but I always think worst case scenario. Even in my personal life, I've always been like that. Me personally, I don't know if every cop thinks like that, but I would say most do, right? Because you have to, because the world is not all, peaches and cream and roses, and that's not the world that we live in. We know that. So we can't pretend that it's like that when it's in our favor. Right? There's situations that occur, bad situations. As a police officer, you need to be prepared for that. And a riot helmet, to me, shouldn't be a problem. You've seen videos of police officers getting hit with bricks. That's for their protection. What we're wearing should not mean anything. Like, yes, I mean, stormtroopers is a little exaggerated.
I know, I'm exaggerating.
They wear a riot helmet. And
You're a Star Wars guy.
Yeah, I'm a Star Wars guy. Boba Fett's in the background right now.
So, like, what, now, I have seen some states where I'm like, Jesus, you look crazy.
Yeah, it's like, where you get this equipment from?
But in terms of NYPD, they wear a riot helmet.
Yeah.
And they hold a stick.
No, I mean, absolutely. Like I said, I got I have another friend, it's a girl, and she was on the front lines in Manhattan. And she was like, I literally have had like people next to me get hit in the face with bricks, and I'm like, that is insane. And I want to fully denounce anybody who is a cop killer or is causing harm to anyone, the protesters that are protesters, or anybody causing harm to police officers, or anybody who's just looting, like just to loot, especially like right now. Obviously I want to be more focused on the pain and why everything is happening right now. But there has to be a line that we draw, especially in the African American community. I mean, what's going on right now is for us. So we just have to make sure that, we play chess with this and not checkers. It's not, just kill all cops, get rid of all cops, and then everything's fine and dandy. It's like, no, that's not going to happen. That's unrealistic. We need real solutions, like voting out these people who make these ridiculous laws, especially the laws that put us in prison and make us targets. And all these other groups that have hidden agendas. I mean,
holding people accountable, man. That's it. Just hold them accountable. We can't let somebody say something or have a certain view and then look, everything I said is my honest opinion. If a month from now I come out and I have a different opinion, you can say, "Yo, Kev, you're full of shit. That's not what you said last month."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're allowed to change. Your opinion's allowed to change, but not your policy.
Yeah.
Right? And we need to hold politicians accountable for that.
Yeah.
You cannot institute crime bills and then years later be like, fucked up. It was an accident. I didn't really mean it. That can't happen, And yes, we need to hold police officers accountable, but we need to hold politicians accountable. We need to hold society as a whole accountable. Everybody needs to be held accountable. It cannot just be one way. One way doesn't work. One way just leads to emotion and arguments and no change. And if we really want change, then this is the way to do it.
And that's both sides, Democrat and Republican. I don't want anybody using this for their point of view.
I'm neither, so I'm neither. I'm down the middle. I'm neither. So.
I think a big question people want to get answered also, and there's all different conspiracy theories online, but as far as like cops talking about it, like what is the perspective of who you've spoken to about the bricks just appearing out of nowhere in New York City?
Guys are nervous, man. Like, I've only been out there with protesters twice. So I mean, if we're talking about me personally,
who's delivering the bricks? Like, do you know? You guys talk about that? Like, where'd all these bricks just come out of nowhere?
No, I mean, look, there's a million conspiracy theories about like, Antifa and this and that, but I don't know, man. I mean,
only Tifa we acknowledge is Queen Latifah.
I don't really know. All I know is cops who are out there are nervous. They're nervous, and I think the protesters are also nervous. And I think when you have two groups that large that are nervous at the same time, only bad things can happen if you don't have a dialogue. We need to have a dialogue. Everybody, like, one of the protesters approached me and he said, like, what do you feel? He's like, what's up? He was very aggressive in the beginning. It was like, what do you feel about police brutality?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm against it, brother. And he was like, almost shocked by the answer, and was like, well, I appreciate that. I'm like, well, I appreciate you, man. Keep doing your thing. And he was like, okay. And he kept it moving. That was it. But that's because we had the conversation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we had the conversation. Now, if I'm being honest, I don't know if most cops are going to say anything because they just don't know. They're like, let me just be quiet. I'm just going to do my job. And it's not because they're not against it.
Yeah.
It's just because they choose to be silent.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not the right thing.
Yeah, I don't know if silence is the right thing. I've had, obviously including you, I've had NYPD police officers that we went to high school with, and they're like, yo, we totally disagree with, what happened with George Floyd. We think that cop should be buried under the jail. I've had NYPD police officers that are like, oh, what charities can I donate to? And I send them, George Floyd or Ahmaud or...
But that's different than on the job. I'm talking about specifically in the protest. I'm saying silence.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I believe no one should be silent about this.
I mean,
at
like,
least at home and at least be talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, there could be, and there is a lot of police officers that just don't say anything. And that's why, I want to know, why don't they say anything, or why police officers aren't more vocal. I can't say I would be, because I'm not a police officer. But, from me looking at it, it's like, all right, all of my friends that I know are police officers, like, you haven't said anything. Why not? Obviously now they have, but before it's like, you were silent on all kind of videos that comes out with, you haven't said anything, but you said stuff now. All right, that's good. At least I know now. I mean, it would have been cooler to know 10 years ago, but I want to know what,
I think,
and you've answered it in your perspective, but I just want to know, what is stopping people from like coming out and just saying that there are bad cops and we're trying to do X, Y, and Z to get them out, or I've tried to do this.
A lot of cops have, right? I mean, I've seen more than ever before cops coming out and saying that what happened to George Floyd was insane.
Yeah.
Right? But what I'm hearing from people is like, well, that's still not enough. So, okay, well, things take time, right? I mean, every cop that I've spoken to personally has condemned that officer's actions. Every single one. There hasn't been one who said like, every single cop said that was fucking crazy and that they couldn't even watch the video. They were like, dude, we watched it. Like, I don't want to watch that shit again. That shit's crazy.
Well, they need to tell this to some of these, people who fully go ride or die for police officers who make it such light of this situation.
I think it's the line in the sand, right? I think after a while, it doesn't matter what your perspective is. You feel like you're the enemy and you're backed against the wall. When you're back against the wall, you have nowhere to go but forward. So you're gonna defend yourself. Because you don't know what else to do. Mm-hmm. So you have no choice but to defend yourself and your profession, right? So I feel like there needs to be more of a dialogue. Yeah. Like neither of you have pushed me against the wall to be like, well, what, it's been a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, right? Even if you might think my opinions are wrong or skewed, we've had a conversation and we'll be able, all of us will be able to move forward from this and say, okay, like, I get your perspective, you get mine, and vice versa, right?
Yeah.
I feel like when you're backed against the wall, and it's someone just hitting you with, it's like, whoa, wait a second, what I mean? Let's talk about this. And I feel like that's a lot of what's going on. A lot of what's going on is just bashing people and a lot of things are taken out of context. Some are not. Some things people say, it's like, bro, you fucked up. You know, you're gonna pay for that one. But a lot of things are taken out of context. Yeah. You know, clips are made, and you know, and I think we need a lot less of that, and we need a lot more dialogue. I think this is the first video that I've never seen a video like this, right, of a police officer doing it. I mean, I'm sure they're out there, but I haven't seen it. I mean, the goal should be, you know, maybe another cop sees it and gives his perspective and does the same thing.
And we're totally open to having any other cops on the show that want to be on the show.
There you go.
But I will say, just because you're saying that, the biggest winner in all of this is obviously the media. Who wins the most? The media. And the more of a divide there is, and the more extreme black or white or blue are, the more ratings it is, 100%. Right? Because no one wants to see people have a conversation, because then things get crushed, and then it's just like, it goes away. And that's everybody. So that's why they want to play a certain narrative of, like you said, certain clips, create your own story, whether it's Republican, Democrat.
And even the ones who are on our side, like Fox. Fox are pro-police. I think they make the situation worse for us.
Well, the whole thing, and not to get to like a political standpoint on that, but the understanding of like the divide in the media is that if people can, not to say Trump's good or bad, but if Trump is made out to be the bad guy, then automatically the Republican vote is taken away, right? You know what I'm saying? That no minority now is voting for Trump. Right. F Trump, right? And then now Biden goes on that show and says the most stupidest thing in the world, right? He's like, "You're not black if you don't vote for me," right? Where now, you know, the minority's
he said, if you vote for Trump, you must not be black.
You must not be black. So and I think the problem, knowing the statistics on the vote, 94% black all vote for Democrat, right? And that's because the Democrats are for the less wealthier neighborhoods, right? They're going to give back to the communities, and Republicans are basically for business owners and considered rich people. So it makes sense that the minority, black, Spanish, any minority is going to vote for Democrat.
I mean,
you know, so
I mean, I'm far from political. I at all. I don't like politics only because, first of all, I'm not super knowledgeable on politics, so I try to stay away from it. But
I love that. I love that response.
Yeah, I mean, I just
and
don't know.
I think we should edit that part out too, where you're just talking about.
The reason why I'm saying it, I'm not saying it because of to get political, but I'm just saying that the media winning the way they're winning, the more of a divide. It's the conversation we're not having.
Look, the media is a business, and that's why people don't think. I think they're really good at their business, and they put talk show hosts that are really relatable, and they're pretty, and they're handsome, and they're able to talk to people, and people listen to what they say, right? Yeah. Now, in reality, they could be spewing bullshit that is just a lie. But people listen to it, even me, and I'm like, oh, that sounds really good. You know what I mean? That sounds really good. I really have no idea, so I'm not going to take your word for it, but it sounds good. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then you watch the media, and it's over, and it's sides, you know. And in reality, they just want you to click the channel, and they want you to watch. That's it. They have no stake in any of this. Most of these news agencies will claim to be left or right, but they're all rich. Yeah. They're all on the same team. They all meet up and go to parties together. They all act like enemies.
They're all green, man. That's it. They're all getting paid.
And they're all getting together and having these parties, and we're the ones that they're dividing. You know, but no, you know, and that's my opinion. That's my opinion. But that's how I honestly feel. You know?
I mean, we just got to be better at, you know, seeing the nuance in things. You know, not everything is, you know, black and white. Definitely. No pun intended.
A lot of gray. There's a lot of gray.
There's gray area with everything. And I think that, you know, a lot of times when someone is so one-sided that it's like you can't even have a conversation with them because, you know, their viewpoints are just going to be based on that one side. And even if they're valid viewpoints, still it discredits them because, you know, it's like, all right, well, you're super Republican, or you're super conservative, or you're super liberal, or you're super Democrat, or 100%. You're super black, or you're super blue. So, you know, we need more people to be able to see the goods and the bads of both sides. Or, you know, like I said, I've said it before, you know, I don't condone cop killing. You know, I'm not out there you know, rioting and looting. My mom didn't raise me that way, but I can understand why it's happening right now. You know, I can understand that there's generations of pain, of not answered problems, of people being oppressed, and sooner or later, I mean, this isn't the first time that this has happened in American history, you know, so do your research. I'm not going to talk about it, but you know, riots have happened before. The community has uprised before based on oppression on anywhere. You know, I just think that we need more convos like this, where we can see, both sides.
Yeah. No, definitely, man. I think it definitely can't be the last conversation like this. There has to be more people out there. I mean, I think we've all done a good thing today by doing it. You know what I mean? And hopefully moves forward and somebody else does it. And,
cool.
And,
Absolutely.
Cool.
I think the best thing is just remembering, from the conversation, spending time with you, Brandon, and all the convos that we've had, and meeting you, Kevin, and hearing your story. I feel the love in your heart for people.
I appreciate it.
And that's it, man. We love people. We want to show support for all of our friends in the African American community. We want them to know that we are listening. We are ready for dialogue. And we're for, people. We want peace, and we want things to change. We want equality. And I really like one of the things that Brandon told me when he was telling me about you was that at the end of the night, when you go home, you take off your uniform, you're just dad.
I'm daddy. That's it. That's it. That's my job. If there's anything I could say, like, what's your job? My job is to be a father. My father wasn't around as a kid, so I take that job very seriously. So I'm a father who's also a police officer, but I'm a father and a husband. That's who I am.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I think the biggest takeaway I think from this and for me during from day one is just empathy cures everything, because I think to answer kind of Brandon's question before, I remember if we were on video already, he was kind of like, how come maybe more people need to step forward? And I think a lot of it's just time, I'm over here dealing with my own problems. I had no idea you felt that way, man. Man, my bad maybe for not vocalizing that, because I had no idea you felt so strongly about that subject. What can I do, to help you out, to help this movement out? Because obviously I want to be what you're about. You're my boy, or you're my family, which is probably where I feel like the majority stands, and they don't know what to say.
At least in our circle.
Yeah, in our circle, and the people we know, And
unfortunately, that's the only circle that we can really speak to, and that's why, I don't want anything to be taken out of context, because we don't speak for the majority,
I just wanted to say, if you wanted to find good in this podcast, you will, and if you wanted to find bad, you'll find that too.
That's true.
Because you can dissect anything anybody said here, and make us all look like assholes, I'm sure. But what I said, we're all coming from a place of empathy is what I'm trying to get to, is that we love everybody and we don't see color, and obviously,
well, you can't say that. You can't say you don't see color.
Yeah, I get what he means. No, it's not. What he's saying is he doesn't.
These are typical mistakes that we can make that don't show empathy.
That might be taken out of context because you just don't know.
Yeah, what he's saying.
I don't know.
So for instance, he can, when he gets home and he takes off his uniform, he's no longer a cop.
Okay.
But someone from the African American community, they can't go home and take off their skin. They don't change their skin color. So for us to say that we don't see color means that maybe what you mean is that you love everyone equally, and that you're not looking at them as different. But the fact that I almost want to tell my African American friends, I see your color and I love you. Because it's different. It's not like, I'm gonna ignore the fact that your skin is black because that sends the wrong message. It's like, no, I see that you're black and I love you for being who you are,
but
and for your skin color.
The only reason I'll ever know that now is because this conversation.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
I have no idea. Right? So if so this is my take on this. So if he says it and you weren't here to say, hey, some people take that offensive. Then they would crush him, right? People would crush him.
Yeah, right.
Hey, who's that? You know what I mean?
People would crush you. That's part of the problem then.
That is part of the problem.
Because let's say I get crushed, and then everybody's like, well,
I'm not
going to say nothing because this dude was trying to do good.
All he said was
shit on him.
That's what drives me nuts, because I'm just like, all right, tell me what I said wrong. I could let you know what I really meant.
Yeah.
And then... But don't crucify me for it.
Exactly. We don't want to make it seem like, all right, if you're going to have black friends, there's a list of rules. Take out your manual. Right? There's an HR as well. I get, I've been friends with Ace for a long time. He's my best friend. I know what he meant. What he meant is that he doesn't see any of the prejudices or the racism that's in the world that is portrayed on African American or any type of minority. That's basically what he was saying.
And I'm saying the same thing. My children are black. My wife is black. And some people might say that doesn't fucking matter. But To me, it matters. I'm a minority. I'm a minority myself. You know what I'm saying? I grew up without a father. Like, those are things that people talk about, right? They say, like, single-family homes and, you know what I mean? Living in the inner city and things like that. Like, that's me. So is that not me because I put on a police uniform? You know what I mean? That I don't think that's fair.
Yeah.
If that's the, you know, if that's who we are, then that's who we are. I include myself in that. You know what I'm saying? My children, my wife.
Yeah.
You know, me.
Yeah, same thing with my wife. My wife is Italian. My daughter just turned 3 months. You know, she's biracial.
By the way, bro.
Thank you. And you know, I got like, you know, my side of the family that's black, and we do things a certain way, and then there's her side of the family that has like a certain mentality. And me, you know, spending time with her family, I have to understand that, you know, they have a certain thought process, you know, that has been there for generations. So, you know, a lot of times I can't just like step in and, you know, give my perspective immediately. You know, I'll just kind of like let it rock, or for something like super dangerous, I'm just like, all right, whatever. You know, if that person figures out their ways and they come to me and want to have a conversation, then yeah, but I'm not getting into debates with anybody. You know, I just keep it moving. And
But I think saying how you feel and debating are two different things. Like, I'm really big on being like, you know, I think you're a dick because you said this. You know, I'm not going to debate you.
I wish I had that. I need to learn
that's
that.
a valid point, because, you know, it doesn't matter, like what I did right now, right? It doesn't really matter my intention of it, although it was good.
Right.
Still, if it makes you feel not good, I need to know that. Otherwise, I might keep saying it and keep hurting your feelings.
Because
you know?
the only thing that helps is you say it, I go back, and me and Brandon are talking. I'm like, you hear that motherfucker? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like that's crazy. Like I'd much rather do what you know.
Yeah, where it's just
she
like,
said, but
oh,
she's
okay,
like,
cool.
no, don't say that, because obviously you're saying that because maybe you said it in the past or somebody told you. Listen,
I'm paying attention.
You're paying-
you know,
right.
I deeply care about what's going on, and I am, you know, all my friends are posting up stuff about us listening, white folks, right? Listening, educating ourselves, you know, just to think that I might have ever offended somebody that I care so much about.
It's crazy.
You know,
it's
like it's
I
like
didn't know.
it literally, it breaks my heart. I could start crying right now, and I'm not gonna, but I've had conversations with Brandon where I'm like, look, I see your Instagram, and the thought that I might have offended you over the course of our friendship is like, you know, just anything, you know? So it's
a truth. Look, this is
I don't want to hurt anyone,
Yeah,
and I want to understand, and I want to feel your pain, and you know, empathy, like Ace was saying, understanding what you go through. And I know that you know, Brandon was saying some police officers have been getting, you know, some threats and harassment and stuff.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, look, there's a lot of fucked up to go around. You know what I mean? I think the only way we fix things with conversations like this. I truly believe that. I truly believe, you know, we're all really the same. You know, we have different experiences, but we're all human.
Yeah.
We're all human. We might have different experiences, different circumstances, but we're all the same at the end of the day. You know? If a guy's gonna be an asshole and not take your perspective, well, he's just an asshole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, when you find people that you can have a dialogue with, you need to make that happen. Otherwise, you know, you missed out on the opportunity.
Gotcha. What do you think, like, if you could give one solution that the police officers, or like just like the justice system, should like implement or make, like based off of your opinion? I'll give mine based off of like the African American like community.
That's hard to answer, brother, because I don't think there's a single solution. I don't even think there's two solutions. I think conversation is the solution.
Yeah.
You know, I truly believe conversation is the only solution to get different people's perspective to figure out. Talk to everybody. Talk to the cops. Talk to the DAs. Talk to the judges. Talk to everybody. Get their perspective. You know what I mean? I don't think there's enough of that. I think there's just politicians. I make the rules. But you don't know shit. You don't know shit about shit. So how are you making the fucking rules?
Yep.
You know, that doesn't make any sense. You're not a cop, you're not a DA. Yeah, maybe you were a lawyer at one point or another, but like, who are you that you get to choose what's right and wrong for fucking everybody? That's crazy to me. But
yeah, I feel you on that. I think, I mean, a solution is, I mean, you know, this is my perspective. Obviously, I think, you know, the country, you know, should have some sort of apology to the African American community. I mean, you could start by, and yeah, we get it, politicians want to wear kente cloth and kneel just for pictures on Instagram. Yeah, that's cool, but no, we need action. Make marijuana legal across the board. Let African Americans who you have locked up the most for this specific drug, allow them to start the businesses first for like the first 2 or 3 years. And then, put a tax on it that is some sort of reparations for African Americans. I mean, look, we have COVID. They've been giving out stimulus checks. They've been giving out this extra $600 for unemployment. So y'all got the money somewhere. So I don't want to hear, we don't know where money's coming from for reparations. And again, this is my opinion. I'm not a political leader or anything like that. But look, marijuana, that's probably one of the drugs that have brought many African Americans and white people together. You grow marijuana in fields, so you used us in fields.
I've never done that in my life.
Yeah. Right? And, you locked us up for it, so it's like, let us get, a piece of the pot. Let us, start building up our community.
And I'm offended that you said you.
I don't mean you. I just mean like the country in general, the powers at be, from the past and the powers now who uphold those old laws and ideologies now. There has to be something done, and that's something that I think is actionable. When I start voting, I'm going to start look at politicians who have agendas for, equality in the black community and for African American businesses, and allowing it easier for us to build up the communities that, are disenfranchised right now.
Yeah, brother, those are all valid points. I mean, I'm not going to argue any of those.
Cool.
Thank you so much for Kevin for being here. Thank you, Brandon, man, for facilitating this conversation. And
had to be done, man.
We appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks.
Yeah,
man. Appreciate
absolutely.
Cool.